the end of summer, the moment we've all been waiting for. The last couple days, it's been cool, the humidity has dropped, and it's been downright pleasant to be outside. This is such a welcome change, as summers in Tennessee can be a little rough, especially if you're not used to it. They're the kind of summers that you just sweat while you're standing still. But I do like summers here. They're dramatic, they're unpredictable, with the thunderstorms and lightning that comes in suddenly and the downpours of rain. And then just as quick as it comes, it's gone and opens back up to blue sunny skies. The summers here are magical to someone like me who grew up in California with the fireflies and the cicadas. So it's a nice time of year. Everything's green, everything's blooming, but we're excited for the change into fall. Summer is also a very itchy time of the year, whether it's the poison ivy that grows rampant throughout the property, the large population of mosquitoes. There is a lot of reason to itch here on our property in Tennessee in the summer. So even though it's the tail end of summer and hopefully the tail end of all the itching, I decided I would go ahead and make something that I've been wanting to make for several months. After pouring through my medicinal herb books, I came across a very familiar picture. In fact, it was a weed I had seen hundreds of times before, a weed that grows in the weirdest places, like on the rocky driveway, and I never knew what it was. This weed is called the broadleaf plantain, and I found that it has some wonderful medicinal properties that will help with all of our summer itching. I found a recipe to use this weed, this helpful little plant, to make it into a salve that we could use whenever we needed. In addition to being medicinal, this broadleaf plantain plant can also be eaten just like spinach. You can make a salad with these leaves. I've also read that you can eat the seeds as well. What I decided to do was go around the property and harvest enough to make a batch of this salve. To be honest, it was hard to find some leaves that already hadn't been eaten down by the chickens. Apparently they're fond of the plant as well. But I found enough, I harvested them, and I took them inside. In order to dry them quickly and maintain the most amount of good properties as possible, I decided to put them in our freeze dryer, along with some basil and more toothache flowers. We have a Harvest Right freeze dryer. We decided to buy this freeze dryer as another alternative to preserve our food. The benefits of freeze drying your food is it is able to maintain the most possible nutrition from the original food. It's a much more delicate way of preserving your food. So this is why I decided to do it for these medicinal plants, so that hopefully I am preserving the most amount of good stuff from these leaves as I freeze dry them. After the freeze dryer was done with my plantain leaves, I put them in a jar with some good quality olive oil, and I set them inside of my crock pot. I needed to infuse the oil with the plantain leaves. In order to do this, I turned my crock pot on the lowest setting, which is the keep warm setting. After 24 hours of the oil being infused with the leaves, I removed the oil from the crock pot, and then I strained all the leaves out of the oil using a cheesecloth. Ta-da! I now have plantain infused oil, and it's medicine. Isn't it amazing? But in order to make this easier and less messy to use and apply, I needed to add something else. I needed to add some beeswax. Now thankfully, I have quite a bit of beeswax on hand. I have saved my hives that I had from my bees a couple years ago. So I went into our garage where I store all my extra beehive boxes and I pulled out a couple of frames. In order to get the beeswax off, I simply heated up a spoon and scooped off what I needed. The next time that these frames will be used by my bees, they'll simply rebuild the beeswax and you'll never know that I borrowed some. After I collected all the beeswax that I needed, I carefully melted it on a double boiler. When that was melted, I poured in my infused oil and mixed it up. I noticed that some of my beeswax was a little bit dirty, which happens, so I strained it to get all of that dirt out to have a nice, clean oil and beeswax mix. I let this cool just a little bit, and then I added lavender essential oils. This is another great medicine for the itchy stuff. Before this cooled too much, I had to get it poured into my bottles and containers. Now, I had bought some nice little containers to do this, but of course I couldn't find them. So we're using old little jelly jars and even an Altoid container. We now have a wild grown homemade medicine to help with all that poison ivy and mosquito bites and all the itches of summer. This will hopefully last the kids until next summer when I make another batch. Our children absolutely love playing in the woods, whether it's building a fort, digging in the dirt for worms, or today's activity, which was making a hammock out of an old tarp and some twine from some hay bales. Watching them brings me back to my own childhood, when everything was an adventure, everything seemed so much bigger than it really is. I love watching them play, but we always remind them, watch out for poison ivy. But no matter how many times we say that, one of them always seems to wind up with poison ivy. But thankfully, next time they get poison ivy or a mosquito bite, they have their very own jar of Plantain Salve. They're so excited about it, they decided to carry it around in their pockets all day. And I tried it on a mosquito bite, and it really does work. Just like children traipsing through poison ivy, us as adults don't always listen to the warnings in our life. We mess up as well and have to suffer some consequences. But as I was observing the plants growing around our property, I see the poison ivy, and right next to it, I see this little broadleaf plantain plant. It makes me think about how amazing God is, that with the sting and with the pain, He provides the remedy. And all we need to do is reach out and take it.